Hello and thanks for watching this Cloud9 ERP Solutions video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to create a brand new stock item and use it on a sales order. So let's get started. So under the inventory workspace, you can see all your menu items here. And under stock items, you'll see it under profile. You can click new here, or you can click the action button here. So the first thing we want to do is give the system an inventory ID. This is the key field and the unique identifier for the inventory ID. However, unlike most ERP systems, you can change this ID later on by selecting this option here. Additionally, in Acumatica, you can auto-sequence inventory IDs. And for certain businesses, that might not be a bad idea because you can search on any keyword in the description. Additionally, you can have cross-reference items, so the inventory ID isn't as important as it has been in older software packages. Before I continue, only 15% of you are subscribed. Hit that subscribe button now to get notified about new videos and events. So for the inventory ID, we'll give it an alphanumeric code, something we can recognize. Again, keep in mind you can use a product code, UPC, or something like that, but in this case, we're going to say First Alert SM, smoke detector. Now, keep in mind, I have additional characters here. With your system, you may only have 10 characters. Out of the box, Acumatica has a character length of 10, but you can quickly change that by going to segment keys, search for inventory, and simply change it from 10 to whatever length. It'll go up to 30 without any kind of modifications. Now, for the description, we're going to call it First Alert Z-Wave Smoke Detector. And once again, keep in mind, you could search by detector or Z-Wave. So make this description as long as you need to so that your customers and vendors understand what they're looking at when they're looking at a sales order, sales quote, purchase order. But also make it simple enough that it's not wrapping too many lines. Because if you have a sales quote, for example, that has 50 items on it, you're not going to want that to wrap too much. It'll go into multiple pages. You can put additional descriptions or more detailed descriptions under the descriptions tab here. And you can even add fonts and formatting. And later, if you use Acumatica's integrated e-commerce, then that information will get automatically uploaded to your e-commerce site, such as Shopify or BigCommerce or some of the other integrations that Acumatica has out of the box. Now, the item class is considered like a category. However, in Acumatica, it also brings in all the defaults that you would want to pull in to this particular item. If any of the defaults are blank, it leaves it alone so that you can fill it in yourself. But things like valuation method, tax category, posting class, what type of lot serial class is it, if it is at all, the base measure. So the item class does more than simply just be a category that you can report on total sales by baby products. It also helps you fill in some of the fields that you would normally have to do manually otherwise in other systems. So in this case, we're going to pick consumer goods. And you could see once again how the unit of measure got pulled in, the valuation method, the tax category, posting class, lot serial class. For the purposes of this demo, we're not going to go into details on all those individual settings. We'll have other videos for that, more related to management of items and setting up item classes and how they're configured and what all these different preferences and settings mean. Under price and cost, we can do a few things here. The first is we can define this into a price group. Price groups are very useful because you can put together different types of discounts based on an array of items. So let's say we wanted to offer a 10% discount for all software type items. We could select this price class. When we're setting up our discount code, we could define it against this price group. This is useful because otherwise you'd have to configure that discount for every individual item. Acumatica makes it easier so you don't have to do that. Additionally, we can have price work groups and price managers. just like we had product work groups and product managers. So people that actually are responsible for pricing this item. Minimum markup percentage is a rule in Acumatica you can define here that says if anybody tries to put this on an order or an invoice and it's less than this minimum markup percentage, you could either set it to the minimum markup percentage, create an error message, or ignore it. Markup percentage is useful. Let's say, for example, we want to always have a 25% markup when we set our price. So if you define it here in Acumatica's pricing system, you can go through, select a number of items, and select the cost method that you want to base the calculation on, and apply 25% on it. So that's what this does here. This can actually apply that percentage over and above the calculation. That's the markup percentage. This is all found under sales prices. You can find our other videos on that. MSRP is more of a placeholder. So for example, maybe this item lists for $79.95. You can also use this under sales prices as well. So you could take, for example, all the items that you've selected in your sales price worksheet and look at the MSRP and maybe take a percentage off of that to set your sales price that you sell to customers. And default price, if all else fails, if there's no discounts in place, if there's no sales prices specific in place, the system will use your default price. Last cost is used on your purchase order. It automatically gets updated. But to get this started, we can put in a last cost, or we can import these items, of course. And when we create our first purchase order, this price will show up. Now, keep in mind that specific vendors define purchase order prices. So when you create your first purchase order, it's going to use $39.95. But as you purchase this over and over again from different vendors, the system will remember the last price you paid for each vendor. You have your manufacturing settings here. You have your warehouses here. So you could set up your default settings just by clicking this button here. And this gives you default settings such as min, max, and reorder quantities at the item at the warehouse of the item level. Here's the different vendors that I might do business with. This will automatically get populated as you start to purchase. We have our attributes here. There's no custom attributes right now, but they get pulled from the item class. So currently, consumer items don't have any attributes. Our packaging information, this allows us to define the weight of this item, the volume of this item, and we can use that for potentially packaging options, where the packaging is set to by weight and volume, or quantity, where we're trying to squeeze so many items into a box for packing. Under our cross-reference here, we can define the different part number that is associated with this item. This item can be pulled using that part number in addition to the first alert SM in the inventory item field. And in this case, we're going to define a barcode. And that barcode is this right here. Notice the other options here. If we add a new record, you can have customer part numbers. These are specific to customers, where you can use that part number and define the customer. So what this does is it allows you to use it in a sales order, for example. Same thing with vendor part numbers. And notice the other alternate types of codes that you can put in the system. You can also override the unit of measure and the description when you use this cross-reference item. So a good example of that is it could be a customer's part number, and you might change the description to better match what the customer expects on the sales order. Additionally, let's say this is a 12-pack of this particular item. What we could do here is take the inventory item ID, go over here to global, put in 12 dash, for example, pick a 12-pack unit of measure, and say here 12-pack of this item. So you're essentially taking the description, put 12-pack in it. Now, if we go back to our general tab, we'd need a conversion from our 12-pack. We'll multiply 12 to get to each. And if we go back to our cross-reference, over here, we'll put in the 12-pack. So now anytime you use this item code in a sales order document, the system will bring up the item using the 12-pack measurement. So now that we have our brand new item, let's create an order. We'll pick a customer. We'll pick a shipping address that we're going to ship this to. We'll add our item. And we'll order 2 of them. You'll notice the prices come in, the $69, and our extended price. But let's say the customer also needs a 12-pack. We'll go down, we'll add the line, we'll use the cross-reference, and now you can see it's brought in the very same item code, but the unit of measure is 12-pack. And how do I know? If I scroll over to the right, you can see the alternate ID. So later that's helpful to see how that came in. But if we scroll over, we'll give it quantity 1 and notice the price. It's taking this number, multiplying it by 12, even though the quantity is only 1, but it's a 12-pack. Now I need to purchase these items, and I want to do so by linking it all to the sales order. So if I scroll over to the right, I can define this in advance as a default. But if I scroll over to the right, I'm going to check this as mark for PO. And you have a few options here. One, you could purchase to order. So it'll go out to the vendor. It'll come into your stock, your warehouse, and then it'll be allocated for this customer so that it gets shipped out. You can also do a drop ship. Additionally, you can do a blanket drop ship or a blanket normal purchase order. So you can create a sales order where you have your understanding of the amount of items and the prices, and that can be converted to a blanket purchase order. But in this case, we're going to leave it alone. We'll hit save. We'll go into our menu here, and we'll create our purchase order. If you do this all the time, you may want to make this a favorite. Now you can see our summary screen to create these purchase orders. In this case, it's the same item, so it's going to create one purchase order. We'll click Process All to process all the items, the line items, on this particular summary screen. And you can see a warning message. This is because when we created the item, we never defined a default vendor. We can do that here. If we scroll over to the right, we can double click here and select our vendor and click Process All. Under the Vendors tab in the item, you have the ability to define the default vendor so that you won't have to do that every time. Now, because this is complete, and because we're only asking one vendor, one purchase order to be created, the system will take you right to that purchase order. So now you can remove the hold. You can email it out to the vendor. Notice the system used our last cost, $39.95. A few days later, we received it. It's coming into our warehouse. We'll enter our PO receipt. This will take all of the items. There's quantity 14 individual items, and it'll bring it into our warehouse. We don't have the bill right now, so I'm going to uncheck that, and we'll release it. Now, if we go back to orders, We open it up. In the purchase order, notice you have this View Demand button. If you click on it, it'll show you what sales orders, or in this case, order, is attached to this purchase order. What generated the demand in the first place? We can open it up. And notice you can see the available quantity now for shipping is 2. There's no longer a warning message along these quantities saying we really don't have the stock to do this. But now we can create the shipment and confirm it. So that's how we create an item. We reviewed the item profile. We created a cross-reference for the item. We put it on a sales order. We sold 2 units of the each. We sold a 12-pack. We created a purchase order link, generated a purchase order, brought it into stock, and then shipped out that sales order. Knowing when to do all these various steps, you'll find those on some of our other videos. For example, how do I know when to ship it? How does the shipping department know when these items came into stock and that they're linked to those items? You'll find our other videos on shipping very useful in that regard. So thanks so much for watching this video. And if you liked it, please click the like button. And if you have any questions about this or anything else about Acumatica, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and have a great day.